Armed Resistance During the Holocaust by Ryan Lee. Introduction. Starting around 1941, Jewish people began the planning phase for a rebellion. It had been almost 10 years since Adolf Hitler had come into power and flipped turned upside down the lives of the Jewish people. It was time for change. The Jewish Underground. In about one-fourth of all the ghettos, which was almost 100 plus, the start of almost 2 years of planning a rebellion began. Meetings were established in hidden places within the ghettos as often as possible, and detection was a constant fear. Detection equaled instantaneous death in a place like this. There was no trial. Extermination was immediate. Thesis statement. Armed resistance can be analyzed by looking at the underlying symbolism, its organization, and the three different levels of it all. I forgot a picture here, but the first main point in text citation. Armed resistance meant to go out there and fight for your freedom, with or without weapons to your aid. This meant that the Jewish people would go out there and fight their way through the ghettos, even if they weren't armed with a gun, much less a stick or anything. They used their own fist. Their most potent weapon was their deep sense of national pride and responsibility, says David B. Kopel, Terms article titled Armed Resistance to the Holocaust, Warsaw. Explanation of in-text citation. It was the thought of going back to a life without constant fear that was enough to bring the Jews to finally rebel against their longtime captors. The Jewish people knew in the end they would be responsible for the progression or extinction of their race, of their people. In the article Jewish Resistance by the Holocaust Encyclopedia, it states that the Jewish people of the Warsaw Ghetto broke out in an armed revolt with a volley of bombs, Molotov cocktails, hand grenades, smuggled in revolvers, and whatever guns and weapons they could get their hands on, and the rest being a storm of fists. The Germans, astonished of what the Jews were truly capable of, were able to put down major fighting within a few days, but it wasn't until almost a month later that Warsaw was liquidated and destroyed. Mordecai Anielewicz, leader of the rebellion, fell in battle about a week before Warsaw was liquidated. To liquidate means to destroy completely. Their plan was simple enough. Knock the Germans right off their feet, blow up a few buildings, show them we aren't messing around, and make an escape to join the Soviet partisan units. Few actually made it to the Soviets. Most perished in battle with the Nazis without the chance to escape. Armed resistance during the Holocaust was much more than playing hide-and-go-seek tag with weapons against the Nazis. Towards the end of the Warsaw Uprising, Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi Minister of Propaganda, wrote in his diary, "The joke cannot last much longer, but it shows what the Jews are capable of when they have arms in their hands." Joseph's words were set into stone after the Jews took Warsaw from the Nazis using whatever was available at the time. The Germans were forced to roll in tanks to end fighting within the ghettos, just so their tanks could be destroyed by the Jewish people and their Molotov cocktails. In the article Jewish Resistance by the Holocaust Encyclopedia, it is stated that Auschwitz-Birkenau, October 1944, members of the Sonderkommando mutinated against the SS guards. The Sonderkommando was the name given for the Jewish underground. Around 250 of the fighters were killed, and 200 more Jewish people were shot and killed. Several days later, the SS identified 5 women involved in supplying the members of the Sonderkommando with explosives to blow up a crematorium. All 5 women were killed. Bombs and other assorted explosives were manufactured within the ghettos themselves, as some Jews were able to smuggle in small amounts of gunpowder after each workday, as the Jews were forced into labor. There were 3 different levels of salvation within the ghettos. There was armed uprisings in the ghettos and camps, escape and smuggling of Jews from towns and ghettos to the forests for partisan warfare, and hiding individual Jews in secretive places, and collective rescue efforts, especially for children, states a Holocaust survivor himself, whose name shall remain anonymous. Jewish people made outgoing efforts to escape out into the woods surrounding the ghettos or camps, either with or without the knowledge they are walking into a minefield. Those who made it out alive seeked refuge in the homes of foreign strangers, or by joining partisan units. If you were found to be smuggling in a Jew with your household, you were shot and killed as well. Refugee camps were set up in forests far from Nazi death camps and Jewish ghettos. Perhaps about 20,000 to 30,000 Jewish people went to join the Soviet partisan units in the war against Germany, is the claim written in the article titled Armed Resistance to the Holocaust by David B. Kopel. Many Jewish people who escaped wanted to make whatever effort they could to save other suffering Jewish people. They had a first-hand experience of what it was like in the camps, and no human being ever deserved to live and die that way. Armed resistance is able to be broken down by looking at the underlying symbolism, its organization, and the three different levels of it, carrying it out and putting it into effect. Armed resistance was not the only way of resisting during the ghetto. There was much more peaceful ways, which won't be discussed here. Armed resistance proved to be the most effective way to rebel against the Nazi rule, creating chaos in ghettos scattered across Europe. It wasn't the most popular way by any means, but it sure did show the Nazis that the Jewish people weren't just helplessly timid little bunny rabbits. This is a video of a testimony of a Jewish survivor, which I am unable to play at the moment, but you may watch it later. The Jewish people had made their choice to rebel, knowing the consequences of failure. But to think about failure while the operation was being carried out was unacceptable, because the Jewish people had faith in the operations to come that would completely change the path of the Holocaust.